February 19th, 1970, Vietnam. A week after 9, Marines died in a Viet Cong ambush. 5 American soldiers walked into a hamlet called Son Thang. When they left, 16 people were dead, 7 women and 9 children. The soldier convicted of their murders served less than a year in prison. How does a life sentence become 11 months? If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. It really helps the channel grow. The Marines had been ordered to avenge their fallen comrades. They found 3 small huts 2 miles from their base. Inside were families. No weapons, no soldiers, just women and children. Their team leader gave the order anyway. They moved from hut to hut, methodical and thorough. When they returned to base, they reported a firefight with 15 to 20 Viet Cong soldiers. But the next morning, Vietnamese civilians led another patrol to the bodies. The lie unraveled quickly. During the courts-martial, the team leader was acquitted. Another soldier walked free. But Private Samuel Schwartz was convicted of premeditated murder and sentenced to life in prison with hard labor. Private Michael Schwartz received 5 years for unpremeditated murder. He later said he was surprised the sentence was so short. Major General Charles Whittaker reduced both sentences to less than a year. They were released in 1971. One of them took his own life in 1975. The other wrote a book and lived until 2017. Afghanistan, February 12, 2010. A family gathered to celebrate the naming of a newborn son. The father, Mohammed Dawood Sharabuddin, was a police commander trained by American forces. Around 3:30 in the morning, he and his 15-year-old son stepped outside to investigate noises. Snipers shot them both immediately. The family rushed out in panic. In the chaos, U.S. Army Rangers killed 5 more civilians, 2 pregnant women and a teenage girl. NATO released a statement claiming the soldiers had discovered 3 women bound, gagged, and executed in an honor killing by their own family members. But survivors told a different story. They said they watched American soldiers dig bullets out of the women's bodies with knives. A British journalist named Jerome Starkey investigated and forced the military to retract the honor killing narrative. Months later, Vice Admiral William McRaven visited the village with sheep as a traditional condolence offering. An internal investigation concluded that the soldiers followed the rules of engagement. No one faced disciplinary action. Early 1969, a Navy SEAL named Bob Carey led a team called Carey's Raiders to a village called Than Phong. Their target was a Viet Cong leader intelligence suggested would be meeting there. Shortly after midnight, at least 13 unarmed women and children died. What happened that night remained classified for over 30 years. Carey claimed his team took fire and returned it from a distance, only discovering later they had killed civilians. But Gerhard Klan, a member of his team, told a different version. He said they rounded up the villagers and executed them so they couldn't alert the enemy. He said Carey gave the order to fire. A 12-year-old survivor said 7 men entered the hut where 16 people hid. They used gunfire and explosives. She was the only one who lived. A museum in Vietnam later displayed a drainage pipe where 3 children reportedly hid before they were found and killed. The unit filed a report claiming 21 Viet Cong soldiers killed and weapons captured. Carey received a Bronze Star. In 2001, he finally addressed the incident publicly. He said he used lethal procedures when there was doubt. He called it a tragedy he could never make peace with, though it could be justified militarily. He said, "I have been haunted by it for 32 years. December 2002, Bagram Theater Internment Facility, Afghanistan. A massive government report, 2,000 pages, was leaked to the New York Times in 2005. It detailed systematic torture and homicide inside an American military prison. 2 men, Habibullah and Dilawar, were beaten to death within days of each other. Soldiers struck Habibullah repeatedly with what they called peroneal strikes, devastating blows to the leg that destroy nerves. Days later, Dilawar died. He was a taxi driver. He weighed 122 pounds. Guards chained him to the ceiling and beat his legs until they could no longer bend. When they struck him, he cried out, "Allah!" And the soldiers found this entertaining. It became a game. Troops would visit just to hit him and hear the sound. Over 24 hours, he was struck more than 100 times. Medical examiners later said his legs looked like they'd been run over by a bus. Most interrogators believed he was innocent, just a man who drove past the base at the wrong time. 27 officers and soldiers were investigated. The punishments were light. Some served only months. Others received reprimands. March 4th, 2007. The Shinwar district of Afghanistan. A car bomb exploded near a convoy of Marines. In response, the Marines drove nearly 10 miles down Highway 1, firing at civilian vehicles the entire way. Witnesses described machine guns spraying traffic. 19 Afghan civilians died. 50 more were wounded. The military investigation found the Marines violated the rules of engagement and showed a lack of restraint. Some Marines lost their jobs and ranks. None went to prison. Nurk District, Afghanistan, 2013. A shepherd found human bones near where American Special Forces had operated. The remains were fresh. Local villagers began digging and discovered bodies in 5 additional locations. They identified 10 men who had been captured by Americans. In total, 18 men connected to this unit were killed during operations. The unit was ODA 3124, a Green Beret team. Former prisoners described electric shocks, near drowning, severe beatings, and being nearly buried alive. One witness said he saw an American with a bushy red beard and green eyes beat a prisoner named Saeed Mohammed to death. Another detainee watched an Afghan interpreter execute a neighbor while U.S. personnel did nothing. When the bodies were discovered, officials denied American involvement and blamed the interpreter. But the Red Cross provided new evidence. Rolling Stone published an investigation. The military opened a criminal inquiry. Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International noted that despite abundant evidence, accountability remained elusive. The families of the 18 men were still waiting for justice when these reports were released. January 23, 1870. Montana Territory. Blackfeet people woke to barking dogs. They were surrounded. U.S. Army forces led by Major Eugene Baker were hunting a band led by Mountain Chief. Instead, they found a peaceful camp led by Chief Heavy Runner, who had been promised government protection. Most men were hunting. The camp held women, children, and elderly people suffering from smallpox. A scout named Joe Kipp recognized the camp and told Baker they had the wrong group. Baker said it made no difference. He threatened to shoot Kipp if he warned the sleeping villagers. When the attack began, Chief Heavy Runner ran toward the soldiers, waving his safe conduct papers. They shot him immediately. Soldiers fired into lodges, then charged with axes and knives. Survivors described soldiers cutting holes in tents and shooting anyone who moved. Approximately 200 people died. Baker claimed most victims were warriors. The Indian agent's report revealed the truth. Most were women and children. Public outrage forced President Ulysses Grant to shift toward a peace policy. April 15, 1945, Jungholzhausen, Germany. After a brutal battle, villagers counted 63 bodies. Most were teenage German soldiers, but the wounds told a disturbing story. Many didn't die in combat. Between 13 and 30 were killed after surrendering. Some estimates suggest as high as 48. An eyewitness watched American soldiers execute 4 SS troops with submachine guns during the night. For decades, silence. In the 1990s, German newspapers began reporting what happened. The U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Command launched an investigation in 1996. They couldn't identify the perpetrators. January 1st, 1945, Chenogne, it's Belgium. Weeks earlier, German SS troops had massacred 84 American prisoners at Malmedy. Tensions ran high. Some units received orders that SS troops weren't to be taken prisoner. When the 11th Armored Division cleared Chenogne, they found German soldiers hiding in cellars. About 20 were dragged out and shot, despite attempts to surrender. An eyewitness watched troops march 60 German prisoners up a hill. Machine guns were set up. He realized what was coming. Later, he walked back down and saw bodies in the snow. General Eisenhower demanded an investigation. Officers of the 11th Armored Division refused to cooperate, claiming the war was over. General George Patton wrote in his diary on January 4th that his men had murdered about 50 Germans. He hoped they could conceal it. No one was punished. A prosecutor at the Nuremberg trials later reviewed the files and said it smelled like a cover-up. March 1943. The Bismarck Sea. Thousands of Japanese sailors floated in the ocean after their ship sank. They thought the battle was over. Then, American planes and PT boats returned. Allied forces had destroyed 8 transport ships and 4 destroyers, carrying Japanese troops to New Guinea. Military leadership decided that wasn't enough. They reasoned that rescued men would return to fight. That night, U.S. Navy PT boats fired at rescue vessels and survivors. At dawn, planes returned. They strafed lifeboats, rafts, and individual swimmers. The water turned red. The attacks went on for days. These documented war violations saw no justice.